That was traumatic.
13 Ghosts is an absolute garbage film that scared little tiny Goose when he was just a little duckling. I think it would have been much more appropriate to make this video on Friday the 13th, but there's not going to be another Friday the 13th on an October for another 2 years, so we're just going to make it on a Wednesday the 13th. Ooh, spooky, isn't it? Yeah, I don't know. I tried. Anyways, 13 Ghosts is by no means a good film. It's ass, to be completely honest with you. In fact, rewatching it now, I can completely admit that it's not even particularly scary. Like, at all. It's a confusing mess of a movie with an honest-to-God, interesting lore, and well-fleshed-out paranormal universe sprinkled with absolute garbage attempts at being scary and sometimes trying to be funny while falling flat on its face. It's a remake based on the original 13 Ghosts that was released in 1960. That movie was just as silly, if not sillier, than the remake, though I will give the original film credit. They made the movie a lot of fun because they implemented real-world tactics to scare the audience, the most famous, of course, being the glasses that allowed you to see the ghosts in the first place. You see that? Yeah, you can't. But if you put on the glasses back then you could have seen the ghosts. It was a stupidly named gimmick called Illusiono, and the way they did it is through a blue filter put on most of the scenes, except for when the ghosts were highlighted in red filters. You put on the glasses that were made of red and blue cellophane filters, and voila, you can see the ghosts. It's basically how people back then saw 3D in theaters. It's a gimmick, but that's what the director of the film, William Castle, was all about. He loved introducing gimmicks and making going to the theaters a well-worth experience. Not only did he have spooky ghosts glasses, but he'd also have actors in the theaters jump up and scare you, or he'd make your chairs move while you sat in the theaters to give you a little spook. And most notoriously, during the screening of House on Haunted Hill, he'd drop a spooky little skeleton with the big red glowing eyes from the ceiling just to scare his audiences. I say notorious because teenagers during the time notoriously sucked, and they'd bring rocks and empty cans and bottles and slingshots just to throw at the skeletons whatever the hell they had, and whenever they dropped down they just used them for target practice. Yet despite that, you gotta give it to William Castle. The dude made theaters a funhouse and an interactive experience, something we seldom ever get from our local AMCs and whatnot. Now, going back to the remake of 13 Ghosts, well, it's infinitely lamer, but as a kid, it was the scariest film I'd ever seen. It's so weird because I really don't know what to think of 13 Ghosts nowadays. This film is absolutely traumatizing. The monster designs, or I should say the ghost designs, were so inventive and creepy, and I had nightmares of both the jackal ghost and the torso ghost for about a good year. I'm not the only one either. Turns out there were tons of kids my age that watched the movie and were also totally spooked. It's like my generation's Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street. Spooky movies, sure, but nowhere near as creepy as they used to be. Now, this is different from last year's Traumathon, where I spoke about a film that traumatized me too, the one about the mask or whatever. Well, the difference is I actually never watched that film, and to this day, I still refuse to watch it just because I don't think it'll be as interesting as what I imagined as a kid. This, however, is different. I watched the whole movie and I could not have been more scared. Nowadays, however, things have changed. Now, I will be honest, this was going to turn out to be a full-blown movie review of 13 Ghosts, but unfortunately I lost the entirety of that audio and most of it was ad-libbed. I guess sometime after Traumathon, if this video gets enough views or enough likes or enough requests, I could maybe do a deep dive, a deep review of the entire movie itself, but I'll just put in some keynotes that really scared the shit out of me as a kid and a lot of the things that I really don't like about this movie now. First and foremost, this whole movie is about Cyrus or Cyprus or something like that. Anyways, he's a big baddie daddy that likes to capture ghosts all night long, all day long, until eventually he gets killed by one of them. It's never really made clear why exactly he wanted to capture so many ghosts. Apparently maybe he wanted to be like immortal or something, but it doesn't really make sense because there's another character who, spoilers, actually betrays the main group of the characters that seemed very friendly at first, but for some reason decided, man, that old daddy dick is really good, so she betrayed them. But for some reason she has dynamite and like capabilities of just blowing this shit up, even though he really needs this device in this mansion, which is where he stores all the ghosts. Now, the mansion itself is beautiful. It is made entirely out of glass, and while it is pretty to look at, it really fucking sucks. All of the ghosts are under the basement. Now, as aggressive as the ghosts can be, everyone outside of the basement is protected by the walls themselves. Even though they're made of glass, they have Latin phrases that help keep the ghost at bay. The only way we can see the ghosts is through the glasses, which is a nice little nod towards the William Castle version of the movie. However, since the original owner died, the only person that can own it is Arthur, which is played by Tony Shalhoub, and if you don't know him from Monk, then I don't know where else you know him. You probably know him from the 57 different tragedy stories that he's a part of in many of the films of his career, or that one time he hooked up with the tentacle porn monster. Either way, he's a great actor. And honestly, he's really good for this role. He always acts as a very sympathetic character, and this is no different, as he acts as a father who, well, is going through a grieving process as his wife was burned, like, to death. Like, I don't know why I said it like that. And all that's left are his kids, and also this very sassy black woman. None of them really have personalities at all. Like, the kids are so forgettable. They get kidnapped within like the first 20 minutes of the film, and you have to like save them from the ghosts. It's really nothing at all. The guy who really steals the show though is Shaggy. Fucking Shaggy from Scooby Doo. I love Matthew Lillard, like, a ton, and he is a firecracker in this film. He just constantly moves and is constantly in pain. He gets the shit end of the stick in this entire film. Like, all the ghosts really hate him, and for good reason. I mean, he captured them, he helped put them in these prisons. I think it's fair that he gets his shit end of the deal, but he's still really entertaining to watch. And we have Tomb Raider, who, again, not really any sort of personality at all. She ends up betraying everyone, but like I said, she brings like dynamite for some reason, and I guess her purpose was to like trick Arthur into thinking, oh, you gotta sacrifice yourself for the kids, but I got these bombs right here, so we could just do that. So her mixed signals. I have no idea why she exists. So there is one scene where she is incredible, where she just explains the entire lore of the whole movie, and it is a blasted shame that this entire film is reduced to just 2 minutes. And what I mean by that is that there are 13 ghosts in this film, and they are all very well designed. Some of them more generic than others, but there are some that are particularly standoutish, and I would love to learn more about them. However, for some reason or another, their backstories were reduced to just a DVD extra special. Yes, you have to buy the DVD in order to find out what the backstories are for each and every one of these ghosts. Now, they're not really mind-blowing, they're not Emmy, Academy Award winning sort of backstories at all, but they're still interesting nonetheless. Just like how one of them was a little leaguer who was the star of his entire state, everyone loved him, except these greasers who just decided to assassinate him, and now he has this horrible scar on his face. Or this one blacksmith man who really loved his family, loved his job, but some rich asshole decided, hey, you stole from me, even though he really didn't, and even though he denied it and didn't go and run away from his entire town that wanted to kill him, his whole family was lynched, and he went on a fucking murder spree to kill everyone in that town. Until eventually he got railroad spikes lodged into his skull and his entire body. It is super metal, and that is really cool. Why didn't we add this to the film? I'll tell you why, because it's the producer's fault. They didn't want to add any more money into this film than they needed to. It was a quick cash grab, it was a summer horror flick, and that's all it ever was. But if we ever expanded upon these ideas, and if we remade this film, I'm sure if we gave it like 13 episodes, for example, on Netflix, we could really dive deep and have way better props and makeup designs for all these characters. I think it would have done way, way better. Oh, and speaking of which, as much as I love the 13 ghosts themselves, I hate seeing them on screen. Like, there is not enough time to process how much these gorgeous designs are made. Like, the 13 ghosts are just there, and then there's this white flash, and then sometimes they slow down, and then they speed up, and it's really, really annoying. It's really fucking terrible, and it makes you almost nauseous. It's hard to watch this film because of all the effects that are going on, and also sometimes the weird sexual connotations that honestly every 90s film had at the time, especially 90s horror films. It was blood and boobs for like a whole decade, and it was a strange time. I didn't really enjoy it myself. Not to say boobs aren't great, I just would rather see the ghosts than boobs, and I'm not really a necrophiliac, so this whole naked chick right here in front of me is not turning me on whatsoever. What does turn me on is the super cool kill scenes. Yeah, there is a scene that is so infamous in this movie that everyone really loved it. It was so creative and wonderful. It's this lawyer character that convinced Arthur into buying, or rather inherit, the whole house, and then he's just all around like taunting all these ghosts and accidentally unveils the entire maze. The entire prison opens up and the ghosts come out, and this one particular naked ghost girl just has him sliced up right in between. Like, his brain is sliced in half. You could see his face, his expression. It is a wonderful kill. I loved it. And then there's this other one that made me claustrophobic for a long time, where this girl who betrayed the guys for the big daddy dick gets crushed between two walls. It's gruesome, and it gave me nightmares for a long time. In fact, since we're talking about it, the entire mansion gave me nightmares. Like, the idea of a maze just constantly shifting with these monsters inside of it, the monsters that you can't see, waiting around the corner to just kill you. I am not exaggerating when I said that I had years worth of nightmares just from this one movie. The whole mansion just changing, not being familiar with your surroundings. I mean, that's so scary to me. Everywhere you look, you are just in a different place, and it is frightening to know that there are monsters going after you and they're fucking invisible. I love that concept a ton, but again, because of the flashes and the distracting special effects, it's really hard to enjoy these characters and these ghosts. Some of them get way more screen time than others, which is a shame, really, because if this were designed like a video game, like every single one of these ghosts act differently, like how it's hinted that the first son or whatever this ghost name is will only kill you if you just move or look at it or acknowledge it, I think that was a brilliant idea. But everyone else just sort of swings a ghost hammer or like a ghost bat or like their ghost fists to beat you up, and it's like, that's not really scary. I mean, I get the jackal being kind of scary, using his nails and whatever, and his design is terrifying, but the others are just like, they're just really big dudes who just beat you up. It's not that scary. The torso, I mean, he gave me nightmares for years, right? But he's just like a rolling head. He has like no threat whatsoever. Wouldn't it be cool if he like gave you hallucinations that you're losing your body parts, or he wrapped you up in plastic wrap and then you're slowly bleeding internally and you're just vomiting inside your own like plastic wrap? You know, like, wouldn't that be way scarier? No, he's just a rolling head. Yes, visually that's creepy, but that's really nothing at all. And I guess really that's my whole opinion on the whole movie. It's just lost potential. There could have been so much more, but they just sort of skimmed out on it. It was a scary film back then, but only because I didn't really know what good movies were. I was scared of the designs, of the concept itself. That put a primal fear inside of me that haunted me for years. Nowadays, it's a shit film. I do not recommend watching it, but it is something nice to watch in the background. I don't know, passively. Just put it on when you're having a Halloween party, if you can even have a Halloween party this year, and just put it on in the background. It will, you know, entertain some folks, I'm sure. It's good for like a cheesy B-movie sort of thing, but if you're really looking for something scary and spooky, look elsewhere. This is not the one.